Daniel, can you be positioned here? No, they asked you to join the conference. Okay. Honorable Minister Dr. Ernest Hilaire, Minister responsible for tourism, investment, creative industries, culture and information, and also the Deputy Prime Minister. Honorable Minister Alfred Prosper, Minister responsible for agriculture, fisheries, food security, and rural development. Honorable Minister Emma Hippolyte, Minister responsible for commerce, manufacturing, business development, cooperatives, and consumer affairs. Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism, Investment, Creative Industries, Culture, and Information, Ms. Donalyn Vitti. Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs, Mrs. Sophia Henry. CEO for the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Mrs. Lauren Charles St. Jules. CEO for Invest St. Lucia, Mr. Octavian Charles. CEO for the Community Tourism Agency, Ms. Dahlia God. Members of the respective technical team, invited guests, good morning. The UNWTO has identified investments as one of the key priorities for tourism recovery and future growth and development. For World Tourism Day 2023, the UNWTO highlights the need for more and better targeted investments for people, for planet, and for prosperity. World Tourism Day 2023 will be a call to action to all governments, development partners, and the private sector investors, to unite around a new tourism investment strategy. Therefore, the Ministry of Tourism, as part of its activities in celebration of World Tourism Day under the theme Tourism and Green Investments, has invited you all today to share how the theme translates to your day-to-day operations and respective policies. Therefore, I look forward to a spirited discussion. So without further ado, we will go into our program, and I would like to invite Ms. Beverly Henry to lead us in prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Can we all stand, bow our heads, close our eyes? Thank you. Eternal and Heavenly Father, we pause to give you thanks for this new day. We come to you today, Lord, asking your guidance and wisdom. We ask, Lord, that you lend us your understanding as we partake and engage in this meaningful discussion this morning. We ask, Father, that you cover the length and breadth of this room with the blood of Jesus, and that you fill us with your peace, and as we expound and enlighten our audience on the work of these agencies that impact our industry. We ask, Lord Jesus, that you keep reminding us that everything we do here today, everything we achieve is for the greater glory of you and for the service of our nation. We thank you for your presence and to guide our actions throughout the day. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Shall we all remain standing for our national anthem led by Mr. Deriviere? Thank you. You shall all sit, please. So, just a few changes to our program. Our moderator, Mr. Emmanuel, is unable to attend. He's out of state, so we will not be in attendance. So, I would like to invite the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism Investment to the podium to give the welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barnett. Good morning to all. Minister Dr. Ernest Hilaire, Minister responsible for tourism and investments, quite up for today. Minister Emma Hippolyte, as well as Minister Alfred Prosper, permanent secretaries, CEOs, invited guests, especially you students from the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. Every year around this time, we come together to celebrate World Tourism Day. And by extension, we also celebrate Tourism Week. This year, the theme, Tourism and Green Investments, is quite apt. Tourism is one of our fastest growing sectors, and we all know that it has a massive footprint and has assisted the rest of the world economies in growing and overcoming some of our many recent shocks. As we rebound as a country, tourism too has been paving the way in many of our investments, both local and foreign. Our responsibility to the theme, to you, our audience, to the rest of St. Lucia online listening to us, and to the rest of the world, is to use investments as a conduit for not just growth, but prosperity. That said, we want to strive to engender a responsible society with green investments at the core, not just in the practices that herald the environment, but also to consider our food security, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot of this from Minister Prosper today, our health, our small business sector, and the growth of our people. This forum today is an opportunity to hear firsthand from the three key ministers the policies of the government of St. Lucia around the theme, again, tourism and green investments. It's an opportunity for you, the audience, to ask questions, and it's an opportunity for those who are in the virtual world to also pose questions on the live and to also participate in the policies that the government has outlined today and for the rest of the financial year. We welcome you to this first policy roundtable and to be immersed in the presentations of the ministers and the technical team. And I bid you happy Tourism Day to you all and welcome to the forum.
PS, thank you for those heartfelt words. We shall move straight into the panel discussion. I would like to invite the moderator, Mrs. Jolie Fanis, sorry. So, Mrs. Fanis, can you come in? Natalie Jolie Fanis.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Our protocol has already been established. I may just need to remind you of who our panelists are this morning, especially for those of you joining us live. If you're just coming in, we are about to begin our roundtable discussion before a live audience as well as a virtual audience. And I must say it's a powerhouse of experts as we really take in the theme for World Tourism Week, tourism and green investments. And as was said earlier, it's for people, planet, and prosperity. And we have 3 key ministries represented with the ministers and the technocrats in the person of the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Investment, Creative Industries, Culture and Information, and I would call them the host ministry, Dr. Ernest Hilaire and his team. Let us welcome them. We also welcome the Ministry of Agriculture, represented by the Honorable Minister Alfred Prosper and his team. And we welcome the Honorable Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives and Consumer Affairs, Honorable Minister Emma Hippolyte and her team. Great. And all of our audience members, thank you for joining us today for our roundtable panel discussion. I want to start with some general areas that I would like each ministry to touch on, and then we will get into some very specific questions for the ministry. And of course, what better place to start than policy, which is what we're looking at today, and that guides everything that we do. Without a policy, we're wandering in the desert. Yes, you must have something guiding. So I want to ask each of the ministries, and given that we are dealing with tourism today, of course, Mr. Minister of Tourism, I'll put the spotlight on you first to speak on your team, to speak about the current policies that are aimed at sustainable practices. And we want to do that generally. Of course, we're looking at the impact of tourism. So the question is for you, Mr. Minister, and your team to elaborate on your ministry and your agency's current policies aimed at promoting sustainable practices. I start with you, Mr. Minister.
And of course, economic. So we have advocated very clearly that we want a tourism industry that centers around people. And again, the theme speaks of World Tourism Day, green investments for people, for planet, for prosperity. And we believe that if our people in St. Lucia, our citizens, can see that they are benefiting from tourism, that tourism is not just for some, but for all. And we speak about tourism being the driver of the economic development of this country, that the more people we can get benefiting from it, it means it will be more acceptable by our people, and therefore become more sustainable. If people are left out and they become cynical of tourism, if they see tourism as something which is being imposed on them, it's something for foreigners. It is foreigners coming building big hotels on our beaches, taking our beaches away from us, and you cannot even go on the beach anymore. Our people could easily become very cynical towards tourism. When we speak of community tourism as a clearly stated policy of this government, how can you speak of a community tourism and expect communities to be welcoming of individuals if they cannot see that they'll benefit from it? So when you start speaking about people, the planet, and prosperity, it's about ensuring that our people can benefit from tourism. And we have actually outlined some deliberate programs. The community tourism is one, for example. We have the Tourism Development Bill, which will be going to the House next week for first reading. And in that bill, we've made provisions that will encourage a sustainable tourism product. You speak about some of the products that the Tourism Authority has been putting forth, and they can speak more about it. The Kabaway Crawl, for example. Only a few weeks ago, we received the World Travel Award for the Caribbean leading destination for adventure and for nature. And if you speak about you being the leading destination in the Caribbean for nature, it has to reflect that you've adopted an approach of pursuing sustainable tourism as it relates to the environment as well. So there are multiple dimensions in which we have actually been pushing that agenda of sustainable tourism. You'll notice in the last 2 years, the ministry has done a tremendous job at elevating the profile of our cultural events, the La Rosa, La Margaret, Emancipation, Creole Heritage Month. Again, all of that is part of ensuring that our culture becomes part of the tourism product and part of a sustainable tourism product. So there's quite a lot that has happened within the ministry in terms of policy and action to make sure we translate the concept of sustainable tourism into an actionable program and implementing it as such.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I am sure that your team can speak to some more specifics in terms of policy, but I hear that there is something going before Parliament in a short time, and I think we'll be able to get to more specifics. But I want to take it over to the Ministry of Agriculture now, and I'm sure there's a wealth that they can speak to in terms of green investments. But we're on sustainability, Mr. Minister, so I guess you would lead your team in terms of speaking to your general policies on sustainability.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Let me first say that I'm a little hoarse, so my voice is not what it usually is. And again, to apologize for being late because I was told that the meeting would be at the financial center. And only when I got there, my secretary called me to tell me
You're in the wrong
that it had
place.
to be at a club, so you know the traffic and everything, so my apologies. Today, I'm very happy to be part of this panel.
Yeah.
Because as the Minister for Agriculture, there's been a lot of calls for agriculture building stronger linkages with tourism. The agricultural sector, as you know, is responsible for food production. And given the high imports of our food currently, especially by the tourism sector, it is important that we build those linkages to be able to encourage our visitors when they get to St. Lucia to eat what we grow locally and not to eat too much of what is imported. Now, you know, the agricultural sector is challenged by a number of factors. One, climate change, and you know the impact climate change can have on the agricultural sector. Just in June, we had a tropical storm called Brett that impacted 75% of the agricultural sector. And now if you go to the supermarkets, you will see a number of the shelves that were recently occupied with ripe bananas, green bananas, plantain, dashing, etc. These are very absent. But I want to encourage you not to be too disturbed by that, because once you do not have plantain and bananas on the supermarket shelves, you will have a problem. But the government that I'm part of, understanding the importance of food and food security to our country, provided support to our farmers in terms of assisting them in getting to rehabilitate the fields. And I'm certainly sure by the end of November, December, we will be seeing lots of plantain and bananas back on the shelves if we do not have any other natural disasters. But in terms of green investment, it brings me back to that 34-year service I had in forestry. Our forest reserve that has tremendous potential for ecotourism. And the tourism industry has benefited quite a bit from all of the activities that the forestry department has undertaken in terms of bird watching, river bathing, ecotourism activities. We have 9 trails currently being operated, and I just wish that we would see greater investment, greater private sector investments in ecotourism. In 2015, the forestry department took a policy decision to privatize 80% of our forest nature trails. And we did, we have made some good progress in Soufrière-Foncé-Jacques, where we have actually signed an MOU with the Foncé-Jacques Development Committee to manage one of our trails. We believe there is tremendous potential in bird watching, in ecotourism. We have a lot of natural assets in the forest reserve that I think private sector investment would be ideally suited to encourage more of our local people, our regional and international visitors to enjoy what nature offers to us, to them in St. Lucia. I believe it is important for us to build those linkages between agriculture and tourism. And I know my farmers heavily depend on the tourism sector for sale of their produce. But I want to call on my Minister for Tourism to inform the hotels that they need to pay the farmers a lot earlier. Because our farmers are complaining that they have to wait 3 months after they sell to get the produce, to get the pay. And obviously that's going to cause a setback for any farmer. I am a farmer, and if I produce watermelons, I do not want to know that if I sell watermelons to a hotel that I have to wait 3 months to get paid. It discourages me from wanting to further invest and further produce. So our farmers are challenged with that aspect of the production, and I'm hoping that we can do a lot better to encourage our farmers to remain in agriculture and continue to provide that much needed food for the tourism sector. I will leave it there. I have my technical officer behind me who has a lot more to offer in this discussion. So I would thank you again for having me here. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister Alfred, for those remarks and for already jumping to our collaborations and linkages that we want to talk about later. And whilst you referenced the Minister of Tourism, I really heard something directly to the Minister of Commerce in terms of investments and privatization and getting persons interested. That's more than the Ministry of Tourism. So, Minister Hippolyte, I want to throw it over to you, not to respond to Minister Alfred just yet, but to talk about your ministry and the policies that you have developed towards sustainability.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good morning to everyone. I believe I need to say that our Prime Minister I bring greetings on behalf of our Prime Minister to this very important consultation. There are also 2 ministries that are not here, but definitely impacts our conversation. So I believe in our conversation, we will one way or another try to bring what you're doing into the mix. And that is the Ministry of Infrastructure, as well as the Ministry of Sustainable Development. With me, we have the technical team from the Ministry of Commerce, our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Sophia Alfie Henry. We have Mr. Ale, who's the Director of SEDU, our Small Business Development Unit, as well as Mr. Esley Lafay, who is the Director of Commerce and Industry. So what are we doing within the ministry? The Ministry of Commerce, look at the names, Commerce, Business Development, Manufacturing, Consumer Affairs, Cooperatives. And within most of these sectors, areas, we are doing things that has linked to tourism. So let us look at our manufacturing, for example, which is the one that when you think of investment and manufacturing. Within the manufacturing sector, we have quite a few of our businesses focusing on the environment and the type of business that we have. And again, we will give the details, but we look at, for example, St. Lucia Linen and the way they have transformed their business in terms of being eco-friendly, in terms of the chemicals they use, in terms of ensuring that, for example, they are now using rainwater harvesting. They are now reusing the used oils from the hotel industry and from the vessels, and are now using it back as energy in the business. That is some of the things that our manufacturers are doing to ensure sustainability. So that's the manufacturing sector. Within the cooperative movement, for example, we are collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture. And for example, in the last budget, we had a budget allocation of some $275,000, and we are helping at least 3 cooperatives to go into solarization. The cooperatives are Soufre, Viewfort, Ancillary, I think, and Denry? Denry. We are helping these cooperatives to move from fossil fuel into solar. And that has significant implications for the tourism sector, because what it does, it allows us to reduce the carbon footprint by using solar, but it also reduces the expenses for the cooperatives. It then makes them more viable. It then impacts the fishermen who goes out. They have more returns. So the whole issue of planet, people, prosperity is included in there. When you look at our Consumer Affairs Department, we had Consumer Rights Day, Consumer Rights Day, sometime in March this year. And our theme was empowering consumers through clean energy transition. And again, bringing to the attention of consumers the need to use LED, the need to be more conservative, the need to provide clean energy. And all of that is to raise consciousness in terms of how we do what we do. When we think of what is happening, when I look at our 2 subsidiary agencies, St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, and the fact that they are now developing protocols to assist our business community in terms of ensuring that we follow proper guidelines. When I think of what is happening with Export St. Lucia and the work that you're doing with CMOS farmers, again, the whole process is on sustainability and ensuring at the same time that they have the right returns. So these are some of the things I believe when we also look at what we're doing with our MSME program, which is where the government have invested some $10 million to help small business. All of this, when we work with them, is to ensure that we develop our people. We do a lot of hand-holding with them, but we place a lot of emphasis on the sustainability of the projects and manufacturing processes that they engage in. So with these words, I think I want to commend the Ministry of Tourism for this very important conversation. It is important that our people are conscious that the Lord has given us a very beautiful country. And as a small island developing state, it is our business, not just the government's business. It is our business, the people of St. Lucia, to protect this gem. And I'm speaking now not only as the Minister for Commerce, but as the parliamentary rep for Soufre Foshajac. A place, and you're smiling, Madam Moderator, You're smiling. When we look at our pitons, when we look at our sulfur springs, the Lord has blessed us. Let us do all in our power. Let us do all in our power. At our homes, the way what we use, what we consume, how we manage our garbage, let us do all in our power to present our country as the gem that the Lord allowed us to. So let St. Lucia, one destination, limitless inspiration, and very close to nature. Let the conversation continue.
I think Minister Hippolyte has really just summed up very nicely as we segue. Of course, we can't speak of tourism if we can't speak of the mecca of tourism that Soufrière is, that gem. So yes, we respect that. And I want to take it to the PSs now to speak in a little more detail to the overview that the ministers have provided here this morning. And I wanted to segue into the community tourism, but I think I will let PS from tourism decide on which policy in terms of sustainability that you want to speak to more specifically, and then maybe we can really go into community tourism. Ms. Vite.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good morning to everyone again. With the number of policies that ministers announced, I think two of them we could probably lament right now. Is really the Tourism Development Bill, which will be going to Parliament. And Minister, since the technical team is here and the rest are listening and watching, I take a plug in to say thank you to the team, to you for the drive, to the industry for their support and their feedback consultations in getting us so far. And I think it's a really powerful and turning time that we have this new legislation going into Parliament, even if it's for the first reading. The legislation that has already been guiding tourism is dated back to 1996. And the tourism that we have today doesn't look like what we had back then. But in order to engender an environment where we can develop it, incentives and direction played a really critical role. In the past, I'm also coining it the past, although it's not enacted yet, Minister. But we had an environment where the legislation favored hotels and that sort of traditional tourism that we had before. But the wheel had been turning for quite some time, but the response of the ministry had not been as timely. But now we have an environment that we are really favoring and pushing, advancing, and cheering on the small businesses, the small individuals, persons like you and me, and persons like, sometimes we say Majo loosely, who would want to invest in the tourism sector without mountains of capital or mountains of assets, and find it extremely difficult for them to get something off the ground. So this legislation really does not recognize a hotel as being 6 rooms to be able to access tourism incentives, but it starts from 1 room. So if persons would like to establish a piece of the pie, you could actually start from 1 room and get the assistance of the government of St. Lucia rather than having 6, which is a mountain of a capital to get. We also look at changing the direction of the way we deal with our stakeholders, making it one more participatory, more inclusive for other persons. And there is a section of the bill that speaks of social partnerships. We really use that section of the bill to look at people and go down to the core. So we want to change the environment of businesses and make them more conscious, not only conscious of the environment, but conscious of the people who actually make the business. So it looks at ensuring and pushing businesses to train their staff, to have considerations of persons who are probably marginalized, to have more consideration for staff who would have to take bus or find their way very late at night. So we're using that as a platform to encourage and at the same time reward. The legislation also speaks to the ministry and the tourism entities, even the tourism authority, and the SLHDA to work collaboratively to ensure that every year there is an award scheme that highlights all of the unsung heroes in tourism. And before we started in the backdrop, there was a loop of the Jimmys. We made our, do I say maiden voyage last year? And again, kudos to all of the institutional structures who stood behind us. It really asks all tourism businesses to look beyond the balance sheet and to focus on people in a way that we have never done before, recognizing that we are the ones, individuals, to drive the sector.
PS, I thank you so much for giving us greater context in terms of the legislation and really bringing it home to the impact that it will have on every individual who's interested in being part of this industry. And I want to segue right next to you, to our CEO, and to ask her, as she goes out and interacts with members of the St. Lucian diaspora, what kind of impact do you see that legislation having in terms of our St. Lucians overseas wanting to invest in our industry, particularly for green investments?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And for the sake of the students who are here this morning, I represent the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, which is the marketing agency for St. Lucia. Along with me here this morning, I have a team. I have the head responsible for public relations, the head responsible for the tourism levy, which is where we get our money from. Also have the head responsible for HR and IT. So we are here this morning. They're joining me this morning to update you and to make the presentation. Regarding the question, Madam MC, I'm happy to report that last year we relaunched a program called Lucian Links, Restore, Revive, Return. And that program is intent on tapping our diaspora. We recognize that the diaspora singularly represents about at least 10% of our arrivals to St. Lucia, most particularly for Jazz Festival and Carnival and the upcoming Creole Heritage Month. A large portion of our arrivals are the diaspora. So we wanted to formalize that program and to exalt them, to say thank you for all what you do in helping us, in helping the economy. So in some way or another, there is some formality of tapping into the diaspora. As far as investments, most recently, we were in London. The minister and I led also a diaspora meeting. Whenever we meet the diaspora, we call it a Lucian Links event because it's a theme event. So as part of our strategy of being in market, we would meet either the media, the travel agents, the travel trade, the tour operators, the airlines, and finally, we come home to our diaspora. While we attended that meeting in London specifically, a lot of questions came about us, and Minister, he's a very strong guy, so he got all the blows. And the questions were, one question in particular, why are we building a hotel, a 9th-floor hotel in Point Serafin? And a diaspora member thought that was too much, that we should not be having a 9th-floor hotel. My colleague is right here from Invest. But I won't share what answer we gave, but notwithstanding, we updated them on how you can be part of St. Lucia. And we proposed to them that this new legislation will allow them to be part of St. Lucia even further. We also highlighted community tourism, and we said to them, if you are returning, if you are from a particular village, try to invest in your village, because many times the request of the tourism authority, we need help. We need help to promote the island. We need help to support. When we get back home, we don't see ourselves being part of the society. So our approach was, within that legislation, you yourself can be an owner. You can be a tourism owner. You can open your own restaurant, you can open your own bakery, you can open you can now have 4 rooms, 5 rooms. Whatever part of the tourism sector you want to be part of, we request that you come back home and invest, because the legislation really appeals to everybody, including them. So that is, through the Lucian links, we have had that approach to the diaspora.
Thank you for allowing me to take it closer to home before we go out. But of course, your substantive role of marketing St. Lucia, how, again, just broaden it up for us, in terms of marketing St. Lucia, how is that legislation really going to enable more interest in investments, particularly green investments?
I think it's very timely, because when we do our research, when we also do I don't have our research manager here with us this morning, but we are data driven in our marketing approaches. So every month we look at where our visitor arrivals are originating. We also look at the type of visitor, the type of spend of the visitor. And through this data, we are able to determine what type of visitor that we are getting into St. Lucia. So as a broader marketing theme, if we do find that there is a need for a specific type of product, we communicate this to the ministry. For instance, I've communicated to the minister that there's a need for a wellness resort. Another wellness resort. We've been asked several times. We've also been asked for smaller, 3-star hotels, because we know that there are many 5-star resorts and luxury resorts. So what we do, we take our marketing approach is, we know that St. Lucia is a sustainable destination, but in terms of that particular legislation, our role is to provide that detail to our audience, and we in turn come back and we relay the feedback to the ministry.
Thank you for that information. I want to bring in Invest St. Lucia with the same question. How is the legislation, that policy, driving investments into St. Lucia from your end?
Good morning. Octavian Charles of Invest St. Lucia. As it relates to the policy, we are guided by the government's policy. We are an investment promotion agency, and our role in particular is to work with investors, to direct them, to guide them as far as foreign investment is concerned. If an investor comes to you, believe you me, the wish list would be a very long one. So we now have to temper that and operate within the laws of the country as far as the Development Control Authority is concerned, approval for their projects that must fall in line with what the country is asking for. So we have instances where investors come. For instance, we are looking at the situation now as it relates to the commissioning of a hotel down the road, where an investor is faced with a situation of having to deal with CMOS growers, CMOS producers in a particular area. And it is a matter that we have to deal with in conjunction or collaboration with the community where that establishment is. So government, ISL, we have to come together to work to resolve this matter, because livelihoods are involved. Yeah? So it's a case where we work with other agencies, we collaborate with them, Ministry of Infrastructure, all in keeping with the laws of the land. We ensure that that is maintained. We don't allow investors to flaunt, the resources into our faces. We work with them for the benefit of the country.
Thank you so much for that response. And I will take it to the Ministry of Commerce, given the context that we're in now, and we're talking about international investments. Can you speak to some of your ministry's work in terms of supporting that, policies that you have in terms of supporting those investments, and again, sticking to our theme of sustainability? Madam Pierce?
Thank you. Honorable Ministers, Permanent Secretary, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
And it's a privilege to be here, to be part of this discussion. And of course, when you speak to investment, the Ministry of Commerce plays a pivotal role. The Ministry of Commerce, part of its mandate is business development, creating that enabling environment. So we currently work very closely with Invest in Lucia to ensure that when prospective investors come to our shows, they are confident that the red tape, we are taking care of that red tape. We are ensuring that it's a seamless process and everything is well laid out. So we dialogue very frequently with Invest in Lucia to continually modify some of our processes, and not just the ministry's processes. We work very closely with all agencies. So you'll have Inland Revenue, you'll have SLASPA, you'll have Customs and Excise Department. So when it comes to trade facilitation, we have to ensure that it is seamless, and hence the reason the Ministry of Commerce is responsible for coordinating the trade facilitation process, bringing all the parties together to ensure that we make that process seamless for prospective investors. We also have the trade license regime that we administer at the Ministry of Commerce, which is also very important. So when our investors, whether it be through Invest in Lucia, we receive an application, we have ensured that there is a representative, a senior representative, the Ministry of Tourism, on that trade license advisory board, who can advise and give input on some of these investments. And the role of the board, and I am the chair of that trade license advisory board, is to ensure that whatever is on that proposal, that investor will meet the requirements of all the regulatory agencies, whether it be for an environmental investment assessment, to ensure that we are not going to cause more harm to our island, and to ensure that whatever is there will redound to the benefit of our citizen and to reduce on any sort of pollution, etc. So that's just in a nutshell what we do as it relates to investment and working collaboratively with Invest in Lucia, with the Ministry of Tourism, to ensure that prospective investors, that they know this is the path, they are well advised, and we make the connections. If we have to facilitate meetings with other key stakeholders, that's part of our mandate also, to coordinate these type of dialogues and to be part of the decision-making process and to advise accordingly.
We feel very safe hearing you say that, that we have an agency that will pull all of those together to ensure that St. Lucia is benefiting and St. Lucia is kept from the ravages, the possible impacts, negative impacts that can come with investment. So thank you so much for that contribution. And of course, we know one of the areas most affected by any kind of investment is the environment. And who needs the environment most than the Ministry of Agriculture? So we have left them as the last ministry to speak on policy in particular, in terms of how do you safeguard, what policies do you have in place to safeguard the environment, particularly from the impact of tourism?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with Minister today to talk about this really important conversation on tourism and green investments. My colleagues here have been talking about investments, so I'm going to try to veer along that same conversation. Investments in agriculture along sustainable lines has not been very forthcoming. But before I go into that, also I want us to recognize that agriculture has 4 major sectors that it covers. That includes forestry, agriculture itself, fisheries, and water. We have seen strides made in terms of investments in water, but because of the scale of our economy and because of the scale of all that is involved in agriculture, forestry, and fisheries and agriculture and water, we have not seen much in terms of foreign direct investment. We have seen foreign direct investments in terms of consumer water, so the bottled water and so on. But in terms of agriculture, in terms of irrigation and so on, there has been very limited to minuscule investments in that area. Our forestry products, on the other hand, we've seen some strides in that area. So when you look at your sky rides and you look at your zip lining, these are forestry integrated products. And we've seen foreign direct investments in those areas. And the Ministry of Agriculture, through its forestry department, has been providing support to these kinds of investments where visitors could come and enjoy the lush vegetation, they could come and enjoy our landscapes and the beautiful scenery. And if any of you have been to the Fomaso, is it? The Fomaso Sky Ride, you'll have a greater appreciation of what this value product is all about. We have had expressed interest in some area that is really good investments. It's in aquaponics. We've had a particular agency come into the country and propose a $20 million investment. However, as a small country, and recognizing the large number of small producers who are extremely vulnerable in terms of markets and demands and climate change and its impacts on their ability to sustain production, we were concerned that if we brought in such a huge investment, that the vulnerability of the smallholder would be further exacerbated, meaning that these persons with these investments would be able to sustain production because we're looking at using renewable energy, the sun and wind, along with LED lighting and so on. So you would have sustained production that was less vulnerable to the vagaries of climate change. So we had to be cautious and ask for investments that were more suited to small producers. That has not happened. The investors are looking for big opportunities, so they have not chosen to scale down the size of the investments. And so in that area, we've seen small producers locally invest in aquaponics. And that aquaponics has been integrated into farm-to-table concepts. So if you were to visit somewhere in Francillou, I think, Choiseul, you would find a young farmer, fairly young farmer, who has invested in an aquaponic system, and now there are tours coming out to the nearby resorts for the farm-to-table experience. And so along these lines of green investments, we've seen most of these investments coming from local private sector. And like I said, we've taken deliberate action to be cautious with foreign direct investments because of the vulnerabilities that they could create among a large number of small producers. There are many other policy areas of the ministry, and Minister mentioned some of it. He said that a lot of these trails and so on have been handed over to private sector. Our policies are generally lined up with what we refer to as the Sustainable Development Goals. And so most of what we're getting involved in are along those lines. So our food security and nutrition policy is essentially looking at a zero hunger earth. And of course, we provide all the support that is necessary for small producers through a series of investments and projects to ensure that that's available. I'm hearing myself. For example, the work of our forestry department, for example, is along the lines of clean water. So the policy, the Sustainable Development Goal of clean water, all the efforts made in forestry is to ensure that we continue to have carbon sequestration and we continue to have a clean environment where our water sources could be supported. Of course, our policy is looking at decent wages. We provide training for producers to ensure that they are able to sustain the workers on their estates and their holdings. And of course, climate action, life below water, our fisheries and blue economy, it's another area that has potential for foreign direct investment, but again, the vulnerabilities are there. The area that we have for fisheries as a small island developing state is limited, and so international direct investments may be looking at trawlers, and this may not be the best modality for harvesting fresh caught fish. And so we have not seen much investment in that area, but however, government through its partners and so on have made investments in getting appropriate vessels so that these vessels could go out there and the fishers could have an opportunity for livelihoods. I'm going to leave it here for now. There's a lot more. The questions that are being posed are going to allow for greater elaboration of what we're talking about. But just to bear in mind, we have 4 major departments, and these major departments, the policies are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. All that we do is looking to achieve those, yeah.
Thank you for that reminder that the ministry is more than agriculture, that it's forestry, it's fisheries, it's water, it's food security. Definitely all of those areas that we need to consider for sustainability. We have been speaking for at least half an hour now. We're going to take a quick break, but I want our live audience to stay tuned because when we come back, especially for our students, we're going to ask our panelists to give us some specific examples of success stories for green investment and sustainability. We're going to speak more about collaborations. And we want some recommendations coming out of this panel as well. So please stay tuned. We are here with a panel discussion for World Tourism Week under the theme Green Investments. Tourism and Green Investments. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us, and good afternoon, almost afternoon, good morning still, if you're just joining us. We are here at the Harbour Club for celebration of World Tourism Week. The day, I think, is actually on Thursday, and we are observing the impact of tourism on the environment in particular, but on the island. And this year, the theme for World Tourism Day is tourism and green investments. And we are here having a roundtable discussion with 3 key ministries led by the honorable ministers in each case and a team. And I just want to introduce them again in case anyone is just joining us. We have with us from the Ministry of Tourism, the Honorable Minister, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, along with his team, the PS in the ministry, Ms. Donalyn Vite, the Permanent Secretary, my apologies. We also have with us the CEO for the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Mrs. Lorraine Charles St. Jules, as well as the CEO for Invest St. Lucia, Mr. Octavian Charles. From the Ministry of Agriculture, we have the Honorable Minister represented, Honorable Minister Alfred Prosper, and let me say Ministry for Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Rural Development. And we have with him his team, Dr. Thomas Samuel, as well as Mr. Kemuel Shabatis. From the Ministry of Commerce, we have the Honorable Minister, Emma Hippolyte, from Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives and Consumer Affairs. And with her, we have the PS in the ministry, Mrs. Sophia Alfie Henry, as well as Mr. Jonathan Alle from Head of the Business Development, and Mr. Esley Lafayette. So welcome once again, panelists. Thank you for really educating us earlier, where we focused on policies that govern investments in St. Lucia as it regards sustainability. And we want to now, given that we have those policies, giving us direction, setting the tone for what we would like to see in St. Lucia, I want to now focus on what have our successes been, both in terms of collaborations and initiatives that have taken place in St. Lucia. And this time, I would like to start with the Ministry of Agriculture. So, Minister Alfred, can you give us an example of a successful collaboration or initiative that your ministry can speak to in terms of green investments in St. Lucia?
Thanks. Yes, I can speak to the initiative or the project in Babono, the Skyrise project. And this project started sometime in the mid-90s. And it is actually situated in the oldest forest reserve in St. Lucia. That forest reserve was the first forest reserve in St. Lucia. And we felt that was an opportune time for us to have that investment in a natural forest, a forest reserve. So at the same time investments are taking place, you are creating employment, you are creating an impact on the tourism sector. But at the same time, it gives people an opportunity to understand the value and importance of our forest and our natural forest. I believe that is one that I think that is very important. There is another investment similar in the forest, but it's on private lands. That's in Erad Dennery. And I believe, as an old forest, an ex-forester, that this is one of the investments I see in the natural forest, the forest reserve.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. I want to throw it immediately to your PS and Dr. Thomas. In terms of preservation of agricultural landscapes, or anything that promotes sustainable agriculture, can you add to your minister in terms of initiatives that play that role?
Thank you very much for that question. For those of you who travel the west coast of St. Lucia and you like the estate vibe, on the west coast I think we have some 17 estates. Most of these over the years, and we've been there for decades, have been involved in the production of cocoa substantively. What we've seen over the years is a transitioning from pure stand cocoa estates to integration of these estates into eco-lodges. So some of you might be familiar with Unionville Estate, for example. You might be familiar with Lytton Lamontine's Fondue Estate, or Mount Kubawi Estate, or the infamed Jade Mountain Resort with its accompanying estate, Cocoa Estate, right at the back of the property. All of these estates, and of course, more recently, the Hotel Chocolat, which was formerly Rabot Estate. All of these estates in the last few decades, what they've done is integrated an agricultural environment with cottages. But that has gone further, and it was the brainchild, I think, of Caroline Chubeskov with the rolling out of Cocoa Heritage Month, if some of you are familiar with that. So the Cocoa Heritage Month looked at all things chocolate. And so all of these estates have some kind of chocolate or some kind of cocoa-related product. I think Chocolate Heritage Month is being observed in October now. I think it originally started in August, but I think it's in October, somewhere around there. And so these properties indulge their guests in all things chocolate. And so this represents one of the most successful transitions that we've seen. And it's really important to note because cocoa as a primary product had become pretty much unsustainable on its own. When we started all these estates, we were looking at export of a primary product, just beans. And yes, it created employment, but fast forward to 2023, in a global environment, it was not so competitive anymore, although the prices have increased to beyond global competitive prices. Our prices are beyond the global competition, but it's still not sufficient to sustain those. And so the transition and the integration of a tourism product in there has made it a really sustainable venture for all these estates along the West Coast and other areas where these are emerging. So I think that represents, in a nutshell, just one of many, many investments that we've seen in agriculture that will be sustained for many, many moons to come. Yeah.
Excellent. And yes, a round of applause for that. And I know there are so many more, definitely, that we can speak to. But these are really significant and well known in St. Lucia. And we want to expand that to other developers. So I will move now to the Ministry of Commerce. And I know that the Minister is really big on business development. So, Madam Minister, can you lead your team in terms of speaking of your success stories in that area?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Speaking on cocoa, because you've heard the technical team from the Ministry of Agriculture focusing on cocoa, and we'd want to use that same theme going forward. For example, within our Taiwanese St. Lucia Taiwan Trade Show, we hosted numerous small businesses, and they get their support from SEDU, and the technical team will give you more information on that. But when I think of some of the participants and businesses that we have helped develop and nurture, Kako St. Lucie is one of the success stories. They participated very early in our trade shows. Now you see them as a well-known tourism product and experience. So that's where you take an idea, you work with the entrepreneur, do hand-holding, looking at the product, again collaborating with the Ministry of Tourism as well as the Ministry of Agriculture. And that is where the whole of government comes in. The Ministry of Commerce working with other ministries and working with the private sector to cause new businesses to develop and grow. You can see it, we can see it when we look at persons like Abby's Delight. Again, a young entrepreneur taking plantains, and now the rest is history. With Export St. Lucia now working with Abby to not only reach the visitor who's here, but also to export. Then you look at another company like NatMed that we have worked with for years, and now they're very much, the product that they have is very much sought after with all the spas in the country having very specific products from NatMed. Their product is also on the shelves internationally as well as for our visitors. So again, our technical team can provide more help on this. But again, with all of this, what is underpinning what we're doing is the Bureau of Standards developing standards immediately, working as well, so that our entrepreneur understands that when we work with you and help you grow, but you must also follow international standards. So I pass now to my team.
Thank you, Minister. And yes, in terms of collaboration.
Louder.
We have about 70% of our businesses are MSMEs, micro, small or medium-sized enterprises. And almost everyone would have walked through our doors at the Ministry of Commerce at one point or another from every sector. And that is where we do the hand-holding, as the Minister indicated. So we have the Small Business Development Center. We have business development officers that are assigned to every client to ensure that from the very small, they can get to formalize their businesses. So we have them sometimes starting off as side hustles. And in order to grow into that giant, in order to make that meaningful contribution to the tourism sector or any sector, we need to ensure that they formalize. So we have that free of charge that's done at the Ministry of Commerce. We have a legal officer at the ministry for that purpose to assist with business registration. And that's part of the foundation. And it's not what you will see when you speak to success, but you need to build that foundation before you can get that visible success. They must have a business name or must be incorporated in order to go to a financial institution, to open a bank account, to access finance. Without finance, you cannot progress. And we also do the training. And one of the courses that we focus a lot on is design thinking, to help our young people think outside of the box and to venture into new areas that they can, bring something new to the table or to the country. So we engage a lot in training, design thinking, assisting them with accounting records, maintaining records, so that, again, they can access finance needed to start or to grow their business. Minister spoke to the trade show, the expositions, and of course we invest heavily because that's the opportunity to get them to gain the confidence to come out there with their goods and services to make it known to the general public. And that's a very important first step. And a lot of them, they get to enhance their products, and these products are sold at the hotels and to guests, and just to expand their market share. And even further, the support of the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards to assist with packaging and labeling standards. Again, you don't see these, you see the other more visible aspects of success, but without building that foundation, which is done at the Ministry of Commerce, you will not have the extent of success across the board, including the tourism sector. So we're very happy to collaborate with every sector in that regard to build the capacity of our entrepreneurs. So I'll hand over to our Director of Commerce and Industry, who will give some examples of some success stories, visible success stories.
And can I just really request that you speak to some that are eco-friendly in terms of their products, their services, the materials that they produce? If you can give us some concrete examples of those from the businesses that you interact with, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Just to add up to what our peer is saying, I mean, the business development would be the first aspect, but then you move on also, attracting investment, but then you incentivize that investment. So you allow those businesses to be able to stretch their dollar, reducing the cost of imports of equipment, materials that are needed, reducing the corporate income tax that will allow them to reinvest their profits and get that growth over a defined period. And we have seen many success stories from that in terms of the more well-known. I recall places like Place Cassave, who started off as a small roadside vendor and has been able to become a tourism experience in its own right. You don't go down the West Coast Road and don't stop for some cassava. And that growth continues into into giants like that we know, like Barnes, or you see what's happening with St. Lucia Distillers, and where they're also trying to turn that into another tourism experience there. And so there are a lot of those instances where that development, that support, that incentives, etc., translates into businesses developing, are able to have sustainable foundations and are able to support the mechanism for tourism and to add to the overall tourism experience of St. Lucia. So those are what we are doing now, and I will hand over to my colleague over at the Small Business Unit, who can talk about some of our other upcoming projects that even goes a bit further in developing those.
Okay, thank you. We also have a project that we recently launched, which is the Community Business Revitalization Program, which basically targets 4 communities in St. Lucia: Castries, Soufrière, Dennery, and Labrie. And in particular, with Soufrière and with Labrie, the projects support ecotourism. So we're working with organizations such as the Fosse-Jacques Community Development Foundation in helping them to develop the ecotourism products, again, providing the training that is needed so that they could manage their businesses properly, working in collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Agriculture, to ensure that the product that is put out there is a product that would be world-class and that would attract our visitors down into these communities to take part in these particular services that they offer. Another thing that was not mentioned was our loan grant program, which has provided support to a number of businesses that are involved in sustainability, or businesses that support the tourism sector or the sustainability sector. One of our clients, Johanan Dujo, Algas Organics, who has been involved in sustainability. We have persons also who are on the other side who help to protect the environment. For example, Green in the Caribbean, who actually is involved in what is called demanufacturing, which is basically taking the waste out of the environment, packaging it in a product form and exporting it out of St. Lucia. So the Ministry of Commerce has been providing a lot of support to sustainable businesses, and we've had a lot of success in that area.
Yes, we have to congratulate the ministry on the work that they have been doing, and we see that redound to the benefit of our tourism product. And of course, we come now to the host ministry that I am sure we won't have enough time for them to tell us of all the success stories, and I see the minister is eager. So we will start with the Honorable Minister for you to tell us of a successful initiative that redounds to the benefit of green investments in St. Lucia.
Ministries before me and the technical teams actually give quite a catalog of success stories. When you listen to the minutes of agriculture in terms of the forest trails, spoke about the zip lines. I mean, for you to have won the award of leading destination for nature and for adventure, it tells you of the quality of product we have between the environment, in that case the forest reserves, and what we offer as a tourism product, from bird watching, horseback riding, whatnot. And of course, we have such success because of the work of that ministry. And of further successes that we will have will depend on that. We've been speaking a lot, and both the PS and the CEO will tell you about identifying all those waterfalls we have in St. Lucia, and almost creating a kind of experience where you visit the different waterfalls in St. Lucia. Of course, some of them are in some very, hidden places, and you need to develop it properly and make sure health and safety, where you wouldn't want visitors coming and getting into problems. We speak of, the Free Peak Challenge, which is to climb Mount Jimmy, Piti Pito and Go Pito in one go. That itself is adventure, extreme adventure, but it depends on that collaboration with agriculture to make sure that the trails are up to world-class standard. It is, done properly, whatnot. So there are a lot of those successes. So when we boast about St. Lucia being a nature destination, it depends on the work of that ministry, because the Tourism Authority and the Ministry of Tourism would not be involved in the physical management and preservation of what we require for that product. And you just heard from Commerce in terms of business development, whereas Invest falls under our ministry, Invest because we're tourism and investment. But the business development component is not done by Invest, and it's certainly done by, Seydou, you listen to the director in terms of the work that they do. And the successes of bringing in investment and promoting local investment depends on their work, because Invest does not engage in holding hands and helping develop and giving that kind of technical support to make it succeed. So we have to work together with the Ministry of Commerce and Business Development to really make successes out of it. And we have so many successes. I'm sure the CEO of Invest will tell you. In the last month alone, we've had meetings with two major investors, investment groups that want to come to St. Lucia. And our discussion with them always comes around to sustainability and regard and respect for the environment, whether it is the proposed development, how it will affect turtle nesting in St. Lucia, how it will affect, the environment and what it do. And the Permanent Secretary spoke about in some detail on the Tourism Development Bill. That's important for us, because in the bill, we're going to transform the way in which concessions and incentives are given, because we're going to start off with a base of, say, 50% of whatever you ask for. But for you to get additional or higher levels, you have to commit to delivering on certain principles. So you get 50%, but if you'll get 60% if you show us how you're going to implement clean energy, solar energy in your investment. If you're going to show us how you're going to engage in grey water management and solid waste management, you get another 10%. If you show us how you are committed to the human resource development at the resort, you get another 10%. So in a sense, we will now start incentivizing persons to follow, best practices in terms of sustainability for you to get concessions and incentives. And we have to depend on the other agencies to make it work for us. Sustainable development, agriculture, commerce and business development. So there is tremendous scope. And we spoke about cocoa, but we also have the CMOS in St. Lucia, which is not as advanced as a visitor experience as cocoa, because you have Caco Setlisi, Hotel Chocolat, Jade Mountain, that focus a lot on cocoa, as pointed out. But we have, with the help of Export St. Lucia, and probably one of the best examples of collaboration between ministries is in what we call Brand St. Lucia, where together with Export St. Lucia, Invest, CIP, and Tourism work together to market and promote St. Lucia as a preferred destination for investment and for tourism. And Export is doing tremendous amount of work in promoting what we produce locally, outside. And only recently, 2 weeks ago, we were in the UK, and Export joined us to actually display to the tour travel operators and the travel agents the local products we have that we just spoke about, those organic products, those, sustainable products that we produce in St. Lucia, to actually show it to them and to say to them, when you are selling St. Lucia, you have to tell the persons wishing to travel, this is what you're going to experience in St. Lucia. So you sell in St. Lucia not just as the beach to go and relax and to get a bronze tan, but you have to sell St. Lucia as a destination that is involved in sustainable production of the same goods that you will use, and they actually seen the goods. In fact, I don't think Sunita had enough goods there because they would have bought everything from her. But they were seeing firsthand what it is St. Lucia is boasting of when it speaks of it being a sustainable destination in terms of the products that we use. I know you probably want to come and talk later on about the recommendations, but probably for us one of the most undeveloped areas is fishing. But it is a very powerful experience for visitors. I mean, I have seen it when I've traveled to other countries, and I've heard visitors speak about it. When a visitor is on the beach on an afternoon and a fisherman pulls up with his boat, and they can actually help the chef pick which fish that they will cook, prepare for the night. For them, that gives them a very special feeling that they are actually choosing from the fisherman what they're going to eat later. So it's from sea to table, not farm to table. But also, too, for them, they are seeing small business people benefit from the tourism industry. So they are very clear in their mind that the fish they will eat later is not ice fish imported from some other country, but it is fresh fish, a small fisherman. And if you ever hear Cap Maison explain to you how the restaurant got the name The Naked Fisherman, you will understand how there's a real fascinating story. I will leave it to the CEO to tell. I won't say it as minister, but that's important to the visitors, because more and more millennials and the younger generation that are traveling want authentic experiences when they travel. They believe more in causes than the previous generation. So they want to know that the destinations they go to are serious about sustainability, serious about creating experiences, and when we can package all of that and to tell of our success stories. And we have so many success stories, as you just heard in a few minutes from the two ministries. So for us, we're very proud in the ministry of the work, and I'm not going to suggest this work has just started. This work has been going on for years in St. Lucia. We have tremendous, experiences of persons promoting sustainability, but we now need to mainstream it. We now need to make it policy, and we now need to enshrine it in legislation that investors who come in the hospitality sector respect green investments, that when they come and they bring their money to the country, and I think somebody said it earlier, I'm not sure if it's Minister Prosper, not to just fund their investment in front of us and we just take whatever they offer us, but we tell them clearly what our principles are, what are the practices we want to encourage, and how it will unfold, because we must protect the future now. I mean, what we decide now in terms of how we allow investments to flow into the country and what they invest in will determine the future. And that's what sustainability is all about. How do you make the right decisions now to secure the future? And we have quite a lot of success stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister. I want to give your technocrats an opportunity to speak. I'm not sure if you can give us some specific examples of public-private initiatives that your ministry has undertaken to drive green investments in the tourism sector.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Thank you, Minister. I must start with one of our non-traditional tourism interventions, understanding the marine environment and the role that it plays in our tourism sector. The ministry embarked on a partnership with the community of canneries. This project has continued past its maturity, but what it sought to do was to create a better environment in the underwater ecosystem for reef health. And I'm sure if the chief fisheries officer was there, she would be lamenting the number of interventions we have collaborated on. Also working alongside the community, what continues to happen is the stabilization of the hillside and the slopes to be able to reduce the runoff with the vetiver planting. And that has continued, as well as artificial reef establishments and coral reef rehabilitation, spearheaded by members of the business community, as well as the Department of Fisheries and Tourism right next side. In the community of ancillary, we all know of the success and the lull of the ancillary fish fiesta, but the ministry, with the collaboration of the Community Tourism Agency, has stepped in to restore the structure. And over the next coming months, we're looking to resume that fish fiesta activity. And Minister spoke about the sea-to-table experience, and that experience was very alive. We still see some semblance of it with some individuals, still doing the Little Friday individual activity. But our plan, and CEO of CTA is a Community Tourism Agency, is to take it up a notch, not only looking at it as a fish fiesta, but looking at it as an event support system for all of the bed and breakfast and the villas and the other accommodation and general activities in the community to keep the interests of tourists all around the country. We have also put in place one of our new projects to come, which is the development of a recreational park in Anne's Fair, which is right alongside the Millennium Highway, in a particular community, or can I say constituency? And part of one of the core aspects of this project is to be solarized. So this project will be solarized, and it will really cater to the community, having an opportunity to do vending and entertainment, and it will be offered as part of cruise and stayover activities. We have recently supported a small business in facilitating a fleet of electric bikes to offer bicycling for visitors as well as locals. A number of our hotels have gotten support from the ministry for incentive to renovate and refurbish their appliances and equipment, those that are more electrically friendly now, and so they've been able to reduce the electrical consumption. We have continued to collaborate with the Department of Fisheries and Agriculture. Again, we're working with what used to be the Debara Sea Turtle Movement, now rebranded and called the Grand Anse Sea Turtle Network. We have started the communication with them, but we know turtle watching and turtle nesting has diverted, and is not generally along the Debara belt, but it is also at the beach situated at Coconut Bay. It's sometimes at Anshasne, it's sometimes at VG Beach. And of course, we continue to collaborate with the Department of Fisheries. Just last week we were witnessing the 18th anniversary of Coconut Bay, and Coconut Bay was able to chronicle a lot of the activities they were doing at turtle nesting, turtle restoration, and having more respect and demonstrating it in a large way for the staff, their training, their welfare, as well as providing care and support to the elderly home down in Vieux Fort. So there are many that we're doing, and I'm sure Mr. Charles will mention some of the key ones with the major civil works investment packages, as well as Ms. St. Jules.
That is certainly a comprehensive catalogue of sustainable activities. Very proud to hear that. So before we move up, should we go directly to Mr. Charles, and then we will move to Ms. St. Jules for maybe some of the marketing strategies. So let's let you continue with you, sir.
Okay, just to follow up from where our PS and our minister stopped. Currently, there's a hotel being constructed at Canals, and we are working with the developer to protect the mangrove. Yeah? We are also looking at utilization of the local materials from the very same locality to incorporate into the designs of the hotel. Also, we are looking at the whole aspect of turtle nesting for that very same property, where we will incorporate the whole aspect into the operation of the hotel. So the turtles, the whole aspect of turtle watching continues in a different manner, so it will not stop. We also have in discussions currently with a developer for the same Grandance Hotel property development that our peers spoke about, and this is aimed at looking at the whole aspect of turtle watching again, to incorporate it. Grandance is one of the major areas for turtle watching in St. Lucia. It's big, it's grand, and there's significant benefits for the country in that regard. So in our discussions with the developer, we are specifically saying that, look, this area is an area that is used for that purpose, and again, you have to incorporate it into the whole aspect of your hotel. So we will not stop it. It has to continue. Our peers mentioned Coconut Bay. There's the aspect of the sargassum seaweed, which is a perennial problem down there. In West St. Lucia, what we have done, we have granted them more or less a free lease, if you want to call it that, because for the past 2 to 3 years, we have not accepted any funds from them. We forfeit the collection of about $250,000 a year for that purpose. So that is valuable revenue income that we forfeit in order for them to clean the beach and to make it available to the public. So that is another thing that we're doing. Of a different nature, the relocation of the Sabwisha, the people at Sabwisha for the construction of that hotel in that area. We relocated them to Lafag, constructed 8 beautiful houses, which were better than what they had. Of course, we have followed up. We ensured that all the amenities were in place, and that perhaps is a standard going forward for Invest St. Lucia. We also have facilitated, again, we provided the Taste of St. Lucia through Export St. Lucia with a space at Point Seraphim. That shop with about over 15 to 20 small entrepreneurs with their products in there, rent-free for a whole year. So these are things that we are doing. We are currently discussing with a gentleman in Vieux-Fort who he has a business model. His guard is fully aware. He calls it Cook Like a Lucian, where the tourists come in, they share the experience of cooking and eating what they cook, which we are very interested in. Invest St. Lucia has agreed to allow him 5,000 square feet of land in Beanfield for that purpose, because his concept is the farm to table. So these are some of the things that we are doing. Yeah? Thanks.
Wonderful. And I know you say just some. We have to have a go-to place where we can find all of that information, Mr. Minister, where people can really go and find this. I want to turn it to the CEO of the Tourism Authority. And audience, we are coming to you for a few questions before we round up. But I wonder if you could speak to examples of successful destination marketing campaigns that have emphasized our destination's commitment to sustainable tourism.
Thank you, moderator. First of all, I'm very happy to report we took a bold move, and 10 of our team members are officially qualified, and last year and earlier this year, they attended the George Washington University online, and they are successful sustainable tourism, either a marketer or in finance or in policy. So I think 2 of them are here today. Yes, Doreen and Kenrick. So we started off on that foot. The idea was to ensure that when we message about sustainable tourism, we know what we were talking about. When we go to market also, we are often questioned as what is the proof of product. So we want to ensure that we don't just say we are a sustainable destination, but we have proof. We have proof of, and today, I think Joreen and I have more work to do because we've got a lot of more proof today. So we're going to integrate all of those products in our overall marketing plan. But just to highlight some of the, quickly what we have done, last year we did the CDP project where we have created over 400 of the small informal hotel products, ranging from 5 to 35 rooms, and we created a brand for them in order for them to be more sustainable, because we noted that during COVID, many of them were not able to market as they should, or they had lost revenue. So we brought to market this product. It's almost like our own brand, our Virtuoso of St. Lucia. 400 of those products are now fully integrated into markets. We have provided for them a Facebook page, a platform on all of our social media. So now they are part of our integrated marketing plan for that sector. It's called the CDP, Collection de Pépites. We also launched the Cabaret Crawl, Minister mentioned earlier, and that again, it is about the community. What we thought it was a low-hanging fruit. We visited quite a few of those areas in St. Lucia where existing bars, and we developed a crawl. A hunt is called the bar crawl, so it's called the Cabaret Crawl, Lucianize it. And what we do, we promote this concept for sustainability among, not just for the community where they reside, but also for our community members coming in. We had a very good success story where one of the tour operators from St. Lucia, Mr. Mathroy, was featured in the New York Times last October because he was one of those who promoted and sold most of the Cabaret Crawl programs. So that's one of our successes here. As we move into also the green impact on events, this past Jazz Festival, we encouraged in our VIP section, we tried to use less plastics. So we promoted the use of biodegradable products in our VIP lounge, and we communicated to our customers that we are promoting sustainability through our events. Also, we just launched a program called Shop Local for September 1st, where anyone coming into the island, you are allowed to go through, it's like a map of St. Lucia where we show all the local artisans that you can participate in. Again, it's about sustainability of the small shops, the small, and we are working also with Export St. Lucia to ensure that we have the correct branding, so when they go to market as well as Export St. Lucia, they can communicate to their audience as well that we have this Shop Local program, particularly for the less popular small businesses across the island. And finally, we also, as the cruise season comes in, we continue to promote cruise passengers and ask them to also, we have not formalized the program yet, but soon we will be formalizing the return passenger, where we try to encourage a cruise passenger to come back to St. Lucia. Again, that's through sustainability, come back to visit the island. And finally, for our retail trade, we are actually hosting an event. They're coming from tomorrow. Our top selling retail travel agents, 40 of them are arriving in St. Lucia tomorrow. And what we do, we are promoting sustainability. That's the theme for this week. So tomorrow they're going through Babonneau, they're going to be doing all these ATV tours. So we are showing them St. Lucia from a different view. So we are not just doing all of the events, but we are doing a sustainability approach. And part of that commitment as well is they bring in gifts and bags for the underprivileged kids of St. Lucia. So these are some of our few marketing strategies, as well as, I know it was mentioned by our colleagues from both commerce and agriculture. We note that there are about 100 luxury rooms that are directly part of the sustainable product of St. Lucia, which is through Fordu, Jade Mountain, Hotel Chocolat, and Unionville. Thank you very much.
Certainly some very impactful marketing strategies that really resonate across the island. So I really want to congratulate the Tourism Authority for the work that they're doing marketing St. Lucia. I've been hogging the attention with the questions. I want to put it out to our in-house audience as well as those online. If there is a question that you would like to ask, we do have a mic in the middle. I want to open the floor for that. So I know that you've listened to so much and there's so much information that has been given, but I'm sure you came with some questions on your mind. Anyone with a question? Ms. Bonnet, are we monitoring the online platform to see if we have... Okay, so we have a student from the South Louis Community College now approaching the mic.
Everybody,
Yes, we want to ensure that even those joining us live can hear your question.
okay, yes. So, what strategy is being used? What strategy is being used to measure the impact destination marketing efforts of both attracting green investments and fostering sustainable tourism practices?
How do you measure?
How do you measure the strategies of impact the destination marketing efforts of both green investment and fostering sustainable tourism practices?
How do you measure the impact of the strategies that you are using?
On both green investments and fostering sustainable...
Who's taking that question?
tourism?
Mr. Minister of Agriculture, you need to measure, too.
No, I think, you specifically mentioned green investments and sustainable tourism.
Yeah.
In a sense, I cannot tell you that we have clearly identified methodologies that focuses on those particular issues. The Tourism Authority would carry out its exit surveys and have a sense of the visitor that comes in and basically what they do and how much they spend. I also know, because the CEO shares it with me, is it quarterly or monthly reports from Airbnb in terms of the home accommodation, who comes to St. Lucia, what do they do, how much they spend, and she receives those reports. I know that we do have the broader study of visitors who come to St. Lucia and the impact that they have. In terms of green investment, I think it is still a little early for us to say that our approach on emphasizing to investors that we want investments that are green and investments that respect our desire to build a sustainable tourism industry. I cannot tell you that we have a methodology in place to measure. I can tell you, though, that there is a tremendous amount of interest in St. Lucia for investments. It is something that we need to reflect on, because the number of investors that we are discussing with now for investment in St. Lucia, because St. Lucia is trending, and people are talking about St. Lucia and wanting to invest. There is one other point I probably should have made, which will also show you the infancy of what we're doing. In the new tourism development bill, we will actually be awarding sustainable tourism certificates to properties that practice sustainability, like you said. But we've not even passed the bill yet and implemented it. That would be a very good indicator, because those properties would have to declare what their sustainable development policy is, and we, in awarding them the certificate, will have to assess the extent to which they are following those policies and award them the certificate. So we're still in a very early stage, but I'm sure as time passes, those methodologies will be put into place.
Okay, I have another question.
Before you, Mr. Jean-Baptiste wanted to respond.
Yes, thank you for your question. Very important question for us as a country in measuring the success of the tourism product. I think one of the indicators that we may want to look at is the return visits or referral visits, as you may want to call it. One of the green investments, which is they use a particular methodology called bean to bar. So essentially, the visitor comes in, gets a bean, plants it, gets to see it start growing, comes back to plant it into the ground, comes back to see it bearing a pod and comes back to produce the chocolate. You see how many times that visitor needs to come back to see your bean grow from a bean to a chocolate bar. So this is just one creative way that investors have determined that they're going to measure it. For us as a country, we need to look at how we could integrate our own indicators with these practices. So how many persons are returning because of a referral that they got from a friend, or because of a product that is being offered that motivates you to come back on numerous occasions. I think that would be a good strategy among many. Thank you.
Promising.
Anything else from any of the panelists? No? Okay, you want to? But I think she sent your research team to do some work. And the data is probably there. I mean, from listening to you, I think there are a number of things that I can recount, even at the launch, Mr. Minister, just in terms of you had referenced the hotels that are changing the way they do things. So it means then that you need to document and gather the data so that you can give my student a more comprehensive response the next time.
Okay, so the other question was for the minister over here. So,
Agriculture.
The minister of agriculture. Yes. So I live in the west side. That's Dennery, and alongside. So we're having a really big problem with the seaweed. So we basically known for doing fishing, and it's not land farming only. So there is fish farming as well. And the fishermen, they're having problem with the seaweed because in Dennery and in Poile, they're known for doing that, and they're having a huge problem with the seaweed. So I want to know what is put in place to help get rid of that seaweed. Well, it's a natural thing, but I mean to help it, to
help the industry.
Yeah, yes.
Very good. Thank you very much.
It's all right.
Yes, and as a conservationist, what would be best is to find the source of the problem, because the seaweed is dying, and we have not been able to find a solution as to stop the continuous death of the seaweed. Now, the seaweed has its advantages, because our fishermen, in one instance, are saying that the seaweed is helping them in terms of the amount of fish that is found in there sometimes. But when it gets to the beach, the problem is, because of the stench and everything, you get a lot of complaints from residents. The ministry has been in touch. The Taiwanese government has been working with the fisheries department in terms of how we can use the seaweed to convert it into other products. But that has not been forthcoming. What would be best is to keep all the seaweed on the ocean, but you need what you call a special net to be able to block it and prevent it from getting onto the beach. Because once it gets onto the beach and it begins to deteriorate, then you have a major problem. Now, our beaches on the eastern side, that's the Atlantic side of the island. The buildup of the seaweed is becoming a major, major problem, but it's very costly to be able to remove it, because every time you remove it, you have another set coming in. So what I think is best is to be able to manage it in a way that it can remain on the ocean. Because once it remains there will not be any smell, there will not be any issue. But what I believe is best for us to do, is to be able to get the source, where it is coming from, what is causing the death of the seaweed. Because in my 58 years, I have never seen so much seaweed all over the ocean. So I believe what is important for us is to get the source of the problem and address it, so we will not have that problem on our beaches.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? The floor is still open.
That's it.
I think they seem quite satisfied. Okay, we have another student going forward.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my first question is directed to the Ministry of Commerce, and anyone is welcome to answer. So are there any investments, particularly for sustainable practices, that are
on stream for the near future?
Repeat the question.
Are there any sustainable practice investments which are on stream for the near future?
That's you. That you made us do.
I know of one particular investor, and they'll be planning to visit Central very soon from Norway. The same people that building the hospital in Soufrière. The technology they want to use, because there will be a new hospital built in Soufrière, the technology that they're going to use in terms of construction is based largely on sustainable practices in terms of the walls and some technology that they use in Norway. I can't pretend I can even explain to you what the technology is. But they also involve in tuna rain, I don't know how you call it. It's like tuna fish that they, they actually, not freshwater, in the sea.
In the sea?
Yeah, they
Fresh like
actually.
a farm.
Mariculture, yeah. And they actually, it's very big in Norway, very, very big. And they want to come to St. Lucia to see if they can do so, because, it is something which, would be quite valuable. Again, I guess once you deal with all the other, environmental issues, it will be an addition to, the list of sustainable practices that we have, that you're actually going to involve, the rain or whatever fish. I'm not sure how you describe it. So that for me would be exciting if the Fisheries Department accepts it as a sustainable practice. But in Norway, it is seen and heralded as a very successful project of sustainable practice, and so there are discussions along those two lines for sure.
My second question would be for the panelists or any minister. So earlier you guys spoke about investments in aquaponics and so forth, and that they might have been too large to incorporate into our economy at the expense of the smaller people in the industry. So the question is there any policy that can maybe be put in place so that the smaller firms will be collaborated with the persons opposed to being like a bigger company?
Yes, so that was me talking about a particular investor, $20 million US. And it was a government, a Ministry of Agriculture decision at the time to safeguard livelihoods. We did engage the investors and did ask for a reduction in the size of investments so that smaller investors or even local investors could participate. We also did ask for collaboration with local investors so that it does not become totally foreign intrusion, so that there will be a building of capacity over time in terms of both the introduction of the technology as well as the capacity in terms of knowledge that is required to operate it effectively and efficiently, but that did not thrive in terms of forward progress. So we're hoping that the investors would reconsider, because this is about building capacity. I mean, we talk about aquaponics here, but the knowledge is still limited in terms of experience, because these particular technologies require high scientific understanding of the process. It requires a high level of detailed monitoring in terms of monitoring every aspect of it. When you put a crop in the soil, that's it. The soil takes care of everything. When you start to move away from the soil and you're now providing everything else, it requires a huge amount of monitoring. So we need to be able to build capacity along those lines so that youngsters like yourself and those coming after you will have a trail of understanding and knowledge as to how to interact with the technology. As it stands, it might be a little difficult to get our older folk on board. We're hoping that investors will allow young folk like yourself to participate and build capacity. Yeah.
And the final question relating to aquaponics. There are a few education institutions that are facilitating the study of aquaponics. They've started teaching students about aquaponics. So are there any avenues for these institutions to receive some sort of assistance in educating the students?
So as a ministry, we would provide, if those institutions or agencies approach government of St. Lucia, we would provide, because we have an incentives program. As we speak, we are already providing support in terms of energy, because that particular technology requires a huge amount of energy. So we've been making investments, supporting them by giving them access to renewable energy, majorly solar systems, to help to reduce the overall cost of the operations. So if and when these investors do approach government of St. Lucia through any one of the agencies here, there are incentive packages that are readily available, and I'm sure that will be made available to them to ensure that they could carry on with their business. Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much for your participation. Oh, we have a response from the Ministry of Commerce.
Yes, the first question, in addition to what the representative from the Ministry of Agriculture indicated, and I'm very happy that there is that first level of vetting at the ministry level, because such an application, if it comes from a non-CARICOM national, that would have to be sent to the Trade License Advisory Board for further vetting. And there is a list of areas reserved for nationals, and it could be by virtue of threshold, any investment below a certain level, or in the case of accommodation, we look at the number of rooms, but we have certain thresholds that we believe that if our nationals have the capacity, we would not approve the investment. We would probably ask the bigger investor or the prospective investor to partner with our nationals so that they can transfer the skills and help to build the capacity of nationals. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for that, for the elaboration from the Ministry of Commerce. As we close, I want to move to recommendations, plans for the future. And I want to start with the Minister of Agriculture first, or his ministry, in terms of what recommendations do you have for the Ministry of Tourism as the lead agency in terms of greater linkages that could be made towards sustainability?
Well, I want to say that I want to see a greater linkage or greater linkages between the Ministry of Agriculture and tourism. As I said earlier, the role of the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of food production is critical. I would hate to know that we have visitors coming to St. Lucia and they cannot consume what we grow. It is important that our farmers continue to produce, and they can be encouraged to remain in the sector as long as possible, because the tourism industry remains very critical for that to happen. Now, I know the tourism sector is rapidly growing, but I never forgot during COVID, we did not have a tourism industry, but our farmers were still producing. That is not to say the tourism industry is not critical, but our farmers also play a very critical role in terms of, sustainable agriculture, sustainable food production. And it is important that those two sectors, those two ministries work together very closely. This is my first meeting since I became a minister in terms of having a discussion around tourism and green investment and so on and so on. I just hope we can continue this collaboration. I hope we can continue this conversation so our farmers can continue to build trust and confidence in the sector. They can continue to earn a sustainable livelihood by ensuring that whatever they produce, there are available markets for the sale of the produce. Food security, as you know, is a global issue, and I believe it is important that every country is able to feed itself. I am concerned by the amount of produce that we import that can be grown locally. And I know one of the concerns that has been coming from the hotel is that they must have the produce available not once every month, once every 2 weeks, but it must be consistent. And once we can produce on a consistent basis, then I see no reason why the hotels would import the large quantities of commodities that we can grow here. So I believe it's important for us to work together, and Ministry of Commerce as well in terms of the investment, because I believe based on the trend that we are seeing in terms of food security, if we do not take drastic actions by 2050, it is predicted the world will be facing a food crisis. And I do not want St. Lucia to be one of those facing the crisis. So it is important that we encourage private sector involvement in agriculture. We need to see more of that. It hurts and it's painful when you see after heavy rains, our visitors cannot use the beach because the water is all discolored. And that is as a result of all of the erosion and landslides occurring in the upper slopes of our watersheds. Now, our forest reserve is very small, although it provides very important benefits to us in terms of water, biodiversity conservation, soil and water conservation, etc. And we know how important it is for our tourism industry. Therefore, it is important that the three ministries present here today work closer together to be able to ensure that we maintain a vibrant, a sustainable tourism sector, but at the same time, the other sectors like agriculture, investment, and so on, continue to benefit by we not working in silo. I believe moving forward, we need to have conversations like these on a more regular basis in terms of the way forward to ensure that tourism, agriculture, commerce, and all other key sectors continue to benefit by working not in silo, but working together as a country. Thank you.
Thank you for that very honest response, Mr. Minister. I will give the Minister of Tourism an opportunity to respond, but I think, Minister of Commerce, you should give your own recommendations, so maybe he can do a complete response to both ministries. So what recommendations do you have for further linkages with the Ministry of Tourism in particular towards sustainability?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I would like to maybe not only endorse, but to, at the beginning of this session, I spoke about collaboration, and I mentioned that we had two other ministries that were supposed to be here and not here. But just to say that what we need to do is to maybe put that more into a structure, looking at the ministries that impact each other as it relates to sustainability, tourism, food security. It's critical for us because tourism is the lead industry. I've always said it's supposed to lead, but it should pull the other sectors with it. So even sitting down, we should sit down and discuss how or what mechanisms or what products, how we can tweak some of the product offerings to our visitors that could cause us to embrace in a more holistic manner the seamstress, for example. We're doing that through our fashion week already. But other things like that, how we can, if we have, and I think we've had a conversation on it. I believe that when our visitor visits here, they usually spend about 7 days, the average. That we developed a day, call it whatever you like, that we cause that visitor to be immersed solely in St. Lucia, in whatever shape or fashion, from what they wear. I always believe the music, the drink, the food, the tours, so they are immersed in all of the St. Lucian experience for the entire day. If we do that properly and we get the collaboration of our hoteliers That is what is fundamental to that. If we get the collaboration of our hotel plans, our hoteliers, then that visitor would have this holistic experience of St. Lucia. But we would be pulling various sectors together to benefit. Agriculture would benefit, fisheries would benefit, our seamstresses would benefit, our manufacturers would benefit, everybody would benefit. So I think a bit of tweaking, we need to put that together. I believe as well within our own cabinet and structure, we need to put a subcommittee with the other two ministries here. Education, I believe, is critical to be part of this. Sustainable development and infrastructure. We have respective responsibilities, but when we sit together, then we see how much we are all linked together. The education and the conversation that we must have on a continuous basis, to me, is one issue that we need to strengthen. Because most times we converse with our visitor to say what we offer. I believe the average St. Lucian need to appreciate what we have in a more holistic way, what it is that makes us St. Lucian, why is St. Lucia so important, and then what is your role in ensuring that we protect that St. Lucianness and we protect St. Lucia. That conversation must take place. It must be in our schools. It must be in our homes. I believe very clearly coming out of this is one of the things that we must put together. The other area for us as well in terms of public visitor education are the do's and don'ts. I think we need to provide some guidelines in terms of protecting as well. We cannot really put them through straitjackets. But there are certain things that we have been told that even the cream they use or the sunscreen can have impact on our coral. There are certain key things we need to sit down as a country and say, we are not importing these 10 items because it's going to damage our coral. Some basic things that we need to put together and with all of that, what are some of the, in terms of agriculture as well, what are some of the practices that is happening upstream that has impact on our water quality? We need to have that conversation and people need to know it. And we need to be our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper. I believe we have a gem, as I said at the beginning, and it is our responsibility to protect it.
The floor is yours, Honorable. You have a response, sir? Brief comment from Mr. Shabatis.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. It's obvious from our conversations that there's huge amounts of collaboration between the ministries and tourism, because we have outlined so many of them. One area, Mr. Minister, if someone asked, or if you were to ask, I think we need to pay attention to the impact of infrastructural investments on the environment. And by that I mean the establishment of hotels. There's a particular hotel under construction that ripped off a long-standing mangrove, and I just looked at it and I thought that's absolute madness. But these issues are serious issues. For those of you who visited Costa Rica, Costa Rica is presented as a mecca of ecotourism. In fact, their mantra is pura la vida, meaning that you are enjoying pure life, a pure experience. And when we have coastal construction, it really breaks the heart of conservationists like myself when you rip off the entire existing coastal vegetation and you're going to replace it with what? We have to remind ourselves people are coming to this country to enjoy its natural beauty. And if we're going to rip off and mess up the natural beauty, particularly along the coast, it has far-reaching consequences, and we must insist that measures be put in place. And I know the measures are there, and perhaps part of the story here is the enforcement of the regulations. But we really must implore the investors that we need to conserve the natural landscapes, the natural beauties. I've never forgotten what used to be, was it Sugar Beach now, but it started off as
Jalousie.
Jalousie was amazing. When Jalousie first rolled out, you couldn't see anything from the coastline. You would. That place was beautiful. I mean, I was right in the middle of the construction. It got a little messy, but they were able to recover from that. And so for me, as a Ministry of Tourism, when we are guiding investors along the coast, please ensure that the regulations are adhered to, particularly things like coastal ecosystems, the mangrove. You do not rip off mangroves without serious thought of the long-standing consequences. So that's just one of the things I'd like to share with us as we move forward. Yeah.
Well, probably I can start off where the last comment was heading, and for sure the ministry is in total agreement with you on this. And it's not only the physical landscape, but also the cultural landscape is important. And when one speaks of sustainability, that must come in. And we know what happened over the last few years in terms of, another development and some Amerindian artifacts that were found. Whether or not you believe it was significant, the findings, the fact is the place was a place of significance and it had to be treated as such.
Just need to keep them closely.
Yeah, so I know presently with the development at Shabusha, we actually told the developer they had to expand the mangrove. So part of their plan is not just to keep what's there, but to expand it as part of the development and find a way to incorporate it within the design of the hotel property. And we're very clear in our minds on this, that we're not going to allow any developer that will come to St. Lucia and engage in any such practices. And there's no doubt in our minds on that, because those, as you said, it is very important that we do so. And we believe in a tourism product that is built on fundamental principles of sustainability. The Minister of Agriculture made a point about strengthening the linkages between tourism and agriculture, and he's right. And there are probably models we can look at. Jamaica has a linkages committee that actually looks at ways in which the public sector and private sector can work together to make sure there are greater linkages. But you made a point earlier on, which is important for us to note, as it relates to the farmers and the hotels and the payments to farmers. And it's probably something that government has to look at in terms of a mechanism where farmers are not disadvantaged. So if a farmer sells to a hotel and he's owed $10,000, he can take that contract and go and cash it, whether it's at the development bank or somewhere, get his money, and then let the development bank collect it from the hotel. And even if they have to wait 3 months to collect it, but government is ensuring that the farmer does not have to wait 3 months to get his $10,000. And it's something that, we can look at a governmental level to have a clearing house, a trading in commodities clearing house, so the small farmers are not disaffected. But when you think about it, in a very simple way, and if you've done economics, you can visualize it. Countries get rich when they earn, so you must earn. Visitors come to your country. For every dollar that they spend on their experience, we must make sure more of that dollar stays in the country. That's how we will earn. If for the vacation, each dollar of that vacation, 90 cents leaves the country, either because 60 cents never came in the first place, or what they spend on it goes back out. It means you earn 10 cents. You are poor for that. But if you can get out of every dollar a more substantial part staying into your country, you are earning. And that's how we must reorient our thinking. We must make sure that every dollar that visitor spends on their vacation, from start to end, more of it must stay in the country. That is fundamental. So as we design the tourism industry, we have to think about it. Another way to think about it is that the country earns when it exports, either goods or services. We export so consumers in other countries can buy. But if the visitors that come in here, 700,000 cruise, another 400,000 stay over, that's 1 million more people right here. We don't have to export to consume it. So we have to see each one of them as a potential consumer of our local products. And then how do we design the systems and the processes to make sure it happens?
Exactly.
So you are right. We need to have that dialogue, that discussion. And a lot of it is taking place, but we need to take it to another level and to make sure that it works. Because, again, for the tourism industry to be sustainable in all its dimensions, environmental, economic, cultural, social, we have to be able to make sure our people benefit. As long as the people do not benefit, it cannot be sustainable. That's the starting point. And, the theme says it, people, planet, prosperity. The people benefit, we will save the planet in the process, and we must be prosperous. Because if our people cannot show that we are enhancing their livelihoods, we'll always be challenged to create an industry that is sustainable. So through greater collaboration between the agencies, we can end up on the same page in terms of advancing that agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. I want to personally commend the Ministry of Tourism for placing themselves under the spotlight as they celebrate World Tourism Week. You could have just let it pass, but you really took time to examine the issues that are affecting us and the impact that tourism is having on us. So I want to commend you for bringing those three ministries together to have that conversation. I'm seeing a finger up, no? Because we're at the end of our time. 30 seconds? Your mic.
One of the topics to me that we left out of the discussion, we can probably continue another time, is the aspect of food security. I think it is critical, especially we're talking about tourism, where we're talking about foreigners, but we are perhaps at a stage where we are having difficulty feeding ourselves, as we see in the present crisis now since June 23rd, when we had Tropical Storm Brett. So I think it's a broader conversation that we need to have on a national level, not just tourism and agriculture, because we seem to be having a little challenge in that area. Yeah? Just wanted to bring it out.
Yes, certainly. So the Ministry of Agriculture is up next to have this roundtable discussion. But this was certainly engaging. There was a wealth of information shared. And as I said, Lucian, it made me feel secure that there are so many measures that we are putting in place, that definitely we are working towards greener investments. And I want to congratulate all the ministries involved and who participated this today, because it's afternoon now. So my name is Natalie Jolie-Fanis. Thank you so much for joining us, those of you online and those of you in studio. But before you leave, let me invite Mr. Nai Gabriel to give the official vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. Protocols being established, I'd like to thank all of our panelists today for taking time out of your busy schedules to share some of what you've been doing. Going into this panel discussion, I must say that I thought we'd be discussing a lot of the gaps that we have in the industry as relates to tourism and green investments. And though this was elaborated towards the end, I do think that a lot was shared in terms of how we do collaborate together, and a lot of work is being done in that regard. So I would like to commend everyone for that. And yes, so in light of all of this, I just hope that we can build on the established synergies and that we can take it to the next level and address some of the gaps that were identified. So thank you very much. And I would like to let you know that food is available downstairs. Thank you.
But before we go, can I just run through our schedule of activities for the remaining World Tourism Day activity weeks? So tomorrow we have on the 27th, Culinary Showdown Season versus On Season at Point Seraphine, tomorrow starting at 10. We have, tomorrow is World Tourism Day. We also have on Thursday, Blaze in Blue. So agencies are encouraged to wear your blue and tag the Ministry of Tourism. A relaxation package, so I've been told by our coordinator. So on the 29th, we also have Industry Perspective, which would be aired on the GIS NTN. And the 29th, which is Friday, we will be hosting a national beach cleanup from various communities.
Very good.
The most exciting activity is a futsal competition on Saturday evening, private versus public. So persons are encouraged, if you have not registered with the Ministry of Tourism, to participate on the public side of the team and show your skills. So that will be taking place in the indoor facility at the Beausejour Stadium. So thank you very much and enjoy lunch.
I am late.